All right, we're following the breaking news. We're learning right now some new details about the gunman who killed 5 police officers, wounded 7 others at a peaceful protest in Dallas. Let's discuss with our experts. We're joined by CNN's Don Lemon, who's covered this from the very beginning. Our law enforcement analyst, Cedric Alexander, is with us. CNN legal analyst Laura Coates, she's a former federal prosecutor, is with us as well. Don, I'm really curious. You watched all of this unfold last night in real time. You were anchoring our coverage. There's some dramatic video. I want you to voice over. Tell us what you saw there, because it's like something we haven't seen in a long time.
It's like something I've never seen before, actually, Wolf. So this is Ishmael De Jesus' video. He's staying at the hotel across the street. The man that you're seeing behind that column, see right to the column there, that is the shooter. And so Ishmael was explaining that to me the entire time as it was happening. So that's the shooter. What happened was a police officer had cornered the shooter here, and he had already, by this time, had taken the police officer down. So what Ishmael said, and this right here, these are officers coming up to the scene after Ishmael had run away and the officer was down. So what he said was, he was in his hotel, he hears these shots, he looks out of his window, and you see that dark SUV there, Wolf. That was the SUV that the shooter drove up in. He parked it, and Ishmael said he started shooting randomly at the intersection there, and then a cop snuck up behind him, a police officer snuck up behind him, and he said, Ishmael turned around, the shooter turned around and just matter-of-factly started shooting at the police officer. He said as he was moving around, he had so many rounds, lots of 30-round magazines, so many that they were falling out of his pockets, Wolf. And he said he thought the shooter was wearing body armor because as the cops were shooting him, as the police officers were shooting him, he wasn't even affected by the police officers shooting him. So he said he turned around and he shot at the officer multiple times, and then once the officer was down, he stood above him and then shot him execution style. And he said he was just shooting wildly, and then when the officer, again came up to him, he shot the officer several times and then right up execution style, and then didn't drive away, left his SUV there, and then made his way around the corner, and that's when he met up with other officers and more gunfire back and forth.
It's horrendous when you look at that video. Very, very disturbing. Don, stand by. Cedric, we're hearing that during the search of the suspect's home in suburban Dallas, detectives have now found what they call bomb-making materials, ballistic vests, rifles, ammunition, a personal journal of combat tactics. It seems like a lot of planning must have gone into this operation.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you consider all that material that was found at his home and the fact that he had tactical equipment, it appears that he had some material in terms of how to maneuver around certain situations, how to take cover, how to barricade himself. It sounds like he was preparing himself for this for some time. He was just waiting on the right event, and that event happened to be that peaceful protest the other night.
How does this attack, this assault, Cedric, psychologically impact police officers who are doing their jobs right now on a daily basis, not only in Dallas, but all over the country?
Well, this type of event is something that really reaches beyond normalcy in any environment. And when that happens, it certainly does create stressors. Policing in and of itself is a very stressful profession. You go anywhere from working an accident that's a minor fender bender to going to an incident where you have a barricaded subject such as you did the other night. That up and down type of psychological, emotional stressors weigh on all of us. But I'm quite sure if Dallas is like most departments across this country, each one of those officers that were engaged in any type of shooting last night, even those who witnessed their fellow officers that injured and died, they're going to provide them with some psychological support to help them work through a lot of the feelings that usually follow that type of traumatic event.
Phil Banks is joining us now, former NYPD Chief of Department. Phil, this is obviously extremely disturbing, especially for police officers around the country. Does this type of attack further divide police from local communities that they're supposed to protect? I don't think Phil is hearing me. Philip Banks, can you hear me?
I hear you now.
All right, good. Does this kind of attack that we saw, this assault, further divide police from the communities they're supposed to protect?
It has the potential to, and certainly it does, but I will say that it does not have to. And if the leaders in law enforcement and the elected officials and the community leaders who the community has put their trust in take an active stand here, it does not have to. So it certainly is a horrific day, and my prayers go out to the families of the officers in Dallas and that city as a whole. So, you know, Wolf, it does not have to, but it has potential to be very divisive.
And it also has potential maybe to bring some communities closer together. Laura, let's talk a little bit about the impact this is going to have on the communities right now. Black Lives Matter protesters, they were marching peacefully in Dallas when all of a sudden this individual started killing police.
It's true, and it's such a horrific event from an otherwise peaceful event that was geared towards trying to vocalize a frustration that's growing in the community about what is perceived as the inability of the justice system to be able to deal effectively with police excessive force. And what this kind of incident does, not only is it a murder that cannot now be prosecuted because it's a hate crime by this man, but also it does nothing to further what the agenda should be, which is we've got to figure out a way to be able to successfully prosecute those select rogue officers who are not honoring their title or their duty. And that's a select few, but there is a plan that should be in place. And one of the ways to do that, Wolf, is to change the standard away from being this reasonable police officer being judged by only his peers and judged by an objective standard of common sense. That's not present.
Everybody stand by. There's a lot more information coming in. We're getting more information on the deadly ambush of police officers in Dallas, the investigation and the fallout, new information coming in to the Situation Room. We'll be right back.